Sarika, you're watching the English news here on Now at Noon with me, Charlotte Journon on Now 26. Well, the theme is continuing on, and I mentioned this on, day because of the fact that it's really had a very big impact. Well, you probably know what I'm talking about, and that is the latest downgrade on the status of the fishing industry and also the military coup d'etat here in Thailand by the United States and the European Union, as the United States has already encouraged that the military quickly bring back democracy by increasing the cutting of military aid to Thai and military. And also, on the other hand, we also have the European Union, which has already said that they are stalling official visits and will be cancelling any signing of further cooperations. But really, the tip, or you could say the trafficking in persons report has brought concerns about the fishing industry, in which now we have experts in Thailand who are reacting both positively and negatively to the various remarks coming from overseas. First, we have Kun Amarin Kauman, an honorary consul of the Benin consulate here in the country, who has not exactly agreed with the EU and the United States. And lastly, we have Kun Somchai Thailand, a political scientist who says that, well, maybe perhaps Thailand should take this opportunity to increase its capability and basically fix itself at the weak points. Here's what they had to say.
We shouldn't worry too much, As a matter of fact, EU countries should worry about their attitudes. If they really want to be a good friend of Thailand, they should understand the situation in Thailand, not to do anything to harm Thailand. Don't use this kind of attitude or policy to take advantage from Thailand, while Thai people suffer a lot in the past. You should understand, and as a matter of fact, EU should support Thailand in every way that they can.
Frankly speaking, we have to distinguish between what we call psychological impact and material impact. Yes, the psychological impact is already a little bit felt. People tend to believe that there will be, for example, a certain protectionism or something like that. But frankly speaking, I would say that the so-called protectionism that would be called what we call material impact is very limited. Look at what happened in EU. The EU announcement is limited into two things. First is the withholding of what we call the official visit. And secondly, stopping, for example, the signing of the cooperation agreement, the so-called partnership and cooperation agreement. So in this regard, I think that we still have what we call the old cooperation agreement effective since 1980. And secondly, it may be resulted in a certain suspension for the negotiation for the so-called FTA. But of course the FTA takes a long time. For frankly speaking, if you look at the EU impact on protectionism and on the economy, it's very limited. Secondly, if you look at the American is just only resulted in what we call the a certain, for example, protectionism or withholding a certain assistance. Educational assistance, cultural assistance, but not affect what we call the humanitarian assistance and trade related. So if you look at these two angles, I would say that the problem that we saw from the announcement of EU and the United States of America have a very limited so-called material impact on Thailand. It is only what we call psychological. But we have to be aware that this is just what we call a warning, a certain token or symbolic. So what we need is that we have to take a little bit of care of what we have already criticized. For example, in terms of trafficking, we need to improve that thing. And we need to communicate to all this country that we are just heading for what we call a full-fledged democracy. So it's not just only what we call a dictatorship, as already perceived that if you can present and the timetable for the heading of from now to what we call a full-fledged democracy, I would expect that the impact would be quite minimal.
In the meantime, though, accusations of slavery being used in Thailand's fishing industry has caused now major retailers overseas, such as in the United States, Whole Foods, taking or delisting CPF or Jalan Pokpan Foods off as a supplier. The company is not the only one that is doing this. Along with it is Carrefour and ICA Norway, having chosen to delist Jalan Pokpan Foods as its supplier following reports of labor abuse in Thailand. CPF has been at the center of the article of the Guardian newspaper, which reveals slavery in Thailand's fishing industry, which is connected to the company's seafood sector. However, other suppliers such as Walmart and Costco have argued that they prefer to stand by the producer and to use their weight to drive change. TRIS rating has downgraded CPF to, quote, a negative outlook from a stable one, but without any mention of the tip report. The new rating reflects CPF's increasing financial leverage and deteriorating cash flow protection following the acquisition of CP Pokpan Company and the slow recovery from an outbreak of an early mortality syndrome in the shrimp industry in Thailand. Well, despite the criticisms coming from the United States and the European Union, China has shown its support for the military government. In fact, it is praising the NCPO for bringing back confidence from the mainland. This comes from the ambassador of China in Thailand, Ning Kua, who showed support for the military government in his meeting with the National Council for Peace and Order, or NCPO, Deputy Leader, Air Force Air Chief Marshal Pachin Dantong. This comes as the United States and the European Union continue to mount pressure on Thailand to return back to democratic rule. The United States has so far cut $4.7 million US dollars worth of security-related aid, and the EU putting off signing trade agreements. In contrast, the ambassador praises the military for strengthening the economic cooperation, which is still going to be continued despite the change of the political situation. Well, anyways, though, taking a look at the factors coming in for the economic side for Thailand's stock market, the United States over the night came out with poor news about the first quarter performance of the economy, bringing some highs now in Asia's share, as they expect that this could delay the interest rate changes from the Federal Reserve. The Asian share swung higher on today, as weak U.S. growth seemed to further delay the day when interest rates might rise, prompting investors to invest funds into riskier assets in a desperate search for returns. The U.S. economy contracted by almost 3%, but actually it's at 2.9% annually in the first quarter, a much steeper pace than expected, which briefly sent the yields on the benchmark 10-year note to a 3-week low. Right now, the Thai stock market has closed midday at around 1,470 range, increasing by almost 8%. So in a way, we are favoring that outcome, but we'll have to see how the stock market will end up in the rest of the day. Anyways, we're going to have to take a short break. Up next, we'll be talking further on about the EU and the United States stance against Thailand and what is going to be happening with the listed companies. สวัสดีค่ะ